Okay, so we are back at the lake. Not too many major happenings going on in Ohio sports currently, but again, these rundowns are just kind of little things that add up that are important to mention before the details get way too much to cover all at once. We're gonna start off with the Columbus Crew. They played two regular season games since I last made a video. They drew on the road against DC United. I believe it was a 1-1 draw. Cucho Hernandez it was a 2-2 draw. Cucho Hernandez scored both goals. We'll talk more about Cucho Hernandez once we're done summarizing these two games that the Crew played. But Cucho Hernandez scores two goals, both after he subbed on. He put the Crew in the lead twice, and they blew it twice. Kind of a disappointing way to get a draw. I know what they say. You'll always take a point on the road in MLS, but when you have the lead with less than 10 minutes to go, you should probably expect a good team to put that away. The Crew weren't able to. They kept that unbeaten match streak going, and we'll get into more of that later. But that game it leaves a kind of a bad taste in your mouth because you do get a draw on the road, you do get that 1 point, but as a Crew fan watching that game, that the team could have gotten a couple more during that game. And on Sunday, throw the records out the window. Even though Columbus and Cincinnati, they were both kind of teetering on that edge of being off or on in the playoff line, so that automatically makes it a huge game. But just the fact that it's the hell is real derby, you definitely want to get that, no matter what the records are for either team. It's an in-state rivalry. I think Cincinnati, although they haven't had as much on the field success against the Crew, I don't think they've beaten them since they were in the USL. But the Cincinnati fans, I'll give them the slightest bit of props for actually making it feel like a rivalry. Their fans are definitely they definitely get their talk going, even if it is completely unfounded, and they've just been railroaded by the Crew pretty much ever since they got into the league. Cincinnati FC sucks. I mean, this year they're fine. They have that Acosta suspension definitely hurt them in this game. I'm not so blinded by my love for the Crew that I won't recognize that the Acosta suspension cost them in this game. But it's always good when the Crew beats Cincinnati FC 2-0. That's always going to be a good feeling. I don't care if Cincinnati FC hasn't won a game and the Crew are league favorites. It's always going to be a great feeling to let little brother know where their place is. That's always fun to do. And in that game against Cincinnati FC, Cucho Hernandez once again got the Crew in a scoring mood, scoring off of a header from a Lucas Zelarayan free kick that, honestly could have been a corner. It was kind of in that same area of the field, but however it went in doesn't really matter. Cucho Hernandez becomes the first player in MLS history to score 4 goals in under 90 total minutes of playtime. That is insane. Not even just, I think he did it in his first 90 minutes in MLS. I think that's just the first time anybody scored 4 goals under any 90-minute span in their career, let alone in their debut 90 minutes. He was subbed out pretty early into the second half of the game, so we'll see if Cucho Hernandez, when it happens that he gets to play a full 90-minute game, they're still getting up to full conditioning. This was the first time he started a game. It was at home. It was in Lower.com Field in Columbus. He scored the goal in front of the Nordeca, so that was a great scene. And, the second goal came off of a Lucas Zelarayan penalty shot. So, if Cucho Hernandez and Lucas Zelarayan are going to show up in every game, then that gives the Columbus Crew a pretty good chance to win whatever game they're in. What Cucho Hernandez has added to this Crew team immediately, not even once he got warmed up or once he got used to playing again, he's been as advertised immediately right out of the gate. And what he's brought to the Crew is somebody to replace that Giassi Zardes type player, where if they get a prime scoring chance, there's a good shot of them converting on that. And Lucas Zelarayan has had some injury issues this year, so if he's not there, and when Giassi Zardes was transferred, you were kind of looking around at this roster going, who's going to finish some of these chances? And that's what they brought Cucho Hernandez in to do. That's what he has done so far, and there's no reason to believe that this type of production is going to stop for him anytime soon. The Crew are now unbeaten in their last 8 matches, which is a pretty impressive streak. Although again, there are a lot of those that are draws and you only get the 1 point and maybe you could have gotten a couple more in a couple of those games. But the more they just not lose, the higher chance of them, actually making an impressive run and getting higher up on the playoffs. The playoff seedings will be. And I think the broadcast made a note that this is the first time the Crew has been in the playoff table, I think, all year, or at least for a long time, that they've been below a playoff spot. And now with this win against Cincinnati, big win over a rival, they climb up into the playoffs. I think they're only 1 point behind Orlando City for that 5th spot. And the Cucho Hernandez coming in has made me excited for this team again when there didn't seem to be much going on for it. They were underperforming again. They were below the playoff table again. They were having trouble scoring again. Tying games when they should have been winning again. It just looked like it was going to be a rerun of last season. But the Cucho Hernandez signing has kind of breathed a new life into the team and into the fan base and into the overall perception of what this Crew team can now do under Caleb Porter. Speaking of a team catching a winning streak, right before the MLB All-Star break, the Guardians swept the Tigers. If the Guardians are going to want to get back into this thing and back into the race for first in the AL Central, they're going to have to start doing that. They're going to have to start beating the teams that are below them and, racking up wins against some of the, the lower level teams of baseball. And, sweeping the Tigers definitely helps in that regard. They are still 2 games back of the Twins in the AL Central. And, with the Guardians, again, it's about finding that consistency. They'd rip off, a bunch of series wins in a row. They climb into first place, and then they start just playing horrible baseball. Now they're 2 games back. Maybe if they can get something going after the All-Star break, maybe Jose Ramirez wins the home run derby, and he gets 20 more before the season ends. This is when the Guardians are going to have to start to make a playoff push and try to make a run for the playoffs when really nobody else in the AL Central really has a footing on what they're doing. The Royals and the Tigers are bad. The White Sox have been very disappointing. When are they going to pop onto the scene? It remains to be seen. And the Twins are in first place just by being just a little bit better than the Guardians in the first place, maybe a little bit more consistent. So if the Guardians can catch down to that winning baseball that they were playing a little bit earlier in the season, and if they can ride that till October, then maybe they can get a playoff berth. And again, once you're in the playoffs, who knows what will happen. Another team in the Buckeye State that are hoping that they improve their chances to make the playoffs this season, the Columbus Blue Jackets. Obviously the big news with them over the past week was getting Johnny Gaudreau out of nowhere. It surprised everybody, every hockey insider, especially local ones, local insiders, national insiders, Canadian, American, big market, small market, you name it. Nobody saw this one coming. The Blue Jackets front office didn't really see that one coming because they had signed Eric Goodbranson, a little more on that later, to a contract, and they held a big press conference that was our free agent target. There's still stuff to do, but, Yarmo always says he's never done, even if he pretty much is. And, word came back that, Johnny Gaudreau is interested in coming to Columbus, and, they get that deal done. 7 years, 9.8, 9.75, one of those two. Getting him for under $10 million, again, I think is still it's kind of a bargain, honestly. I know it's a lot to spend, but for a guy like Johnny Gaudreau, and if he continues to play like he has been, that deal is going to be worth every penny, in my opinion. But back to this Eric Goodbranson signing that happened a few hours earlier than the Johnny Gaudreau signing. This contract is awful. Yarmo signed the best contract with Johnny Gaudreau, and I think this Eric Goodbranson contract so far is if it's not the worst, it's definitely in contention for one of the worst contract signings so far. Look, I get that you need. I said this earlier, a couple weeks ago. You need some pushback. You need somebody who can get physical. You need somebody who's willing to fight on this team. I understand that they got pushed around a lot last year, but you can find guys like Eric Goodbranson cheaper, and you don't have to sign them for 4 years on the free agent market. You did not have to. I don't think you had to sign Eric Goodbranson for more than double what he was making in Calgary for 4 years. That's what really that's what I really don't like about this contract. And it isn't so much the $4 million, because before the Johnny Gaudreau signing, the Jackets weren't really hurting for cap space. I wasn't really concerned about the $4 million so much as I was about the 4 years, because that is a big commitment for a player of that, you really only hope that to bring some physical edge. He isn't really known for dazzling play with the puck, not really known for being a stellar, shut down defenseman in his own zone. This is just a guy you get that's a, huge, like 6'4", huge guy that can move guys out of the crease, that can push some people around if things start getting chippy. I understand why you sign a guy like Erik Gudbranson. I just, I don't know if you sign him for this much for this long. And when Jarmo was talking about it, he said like, oh, well, you're paying for intangibles. And when you have a target, you have to pay what you have to pay. And I guess maybe that's what Erik Gudbranson was asking for, and he wasn't budging. But, if that's me, I'm telling Erik Gudbranson, okay, fine, then take a hike, go somewhere else. But the Jackets found, they got a guy that they wanted. And again, obviously this was, I think, before they knew that Johnny Gaudreau was even thinking about coming to Columbus. I know there was a report that I saw from one of the insiders that they had also offered a contract to Nazem Kadri before they knew that Johnny Gaudreau was signing. And when, they got the call from Johnny, they were just like, hey, Nazem, sorry, but we're going to have to rescind our offer. Like, I don't think Nazem was going to sign with the Jackets anyway. I know nobody thought that Johnny Gaudreau was, but I think Nazem Kadri's definitely, he could have signed somewhere by now. I think he's waiting for Colorado to get their stuff together and, work with the cap space and get a deal done with Colorado. I think that's why it's taken so long for Nas to get a deal. And with the Johnny Gaudreau signing, now some other moves are necessary for the Blue Jackets to clear up the cap space necessary in order to sign Patrik Laine for the long-term deal for the money he's going to want. The reportings from Aaron Portzline seem to indicate that the Blue Jackets and Laine are about $1 million to $1.5 million off from what they want. And I know the Jackets have a little bit more cap room than cap friendly might indicate, because I think that right now they have like 26 players counted against the cap. So a few of those guys are going to move down to the minors. They're going to get a little bit more cap relief, but I think even with that, they're going to be stuck at like 6.5, 7, and that's maybe that's what Laine is technically worth if you plug it into some formula. But I think if you have the Patrik Laine factor of just being able to put pucks in net and what he'll fetch on the free agent market, especially because his qualifying offer is going to be $7.5 million. There's no way you get Patrik Laine for that cheap. You're going to have to move, somebody that's a quality player to get this deal done. Gus Nyquist is the first name that pops up to me. You could probably move Jake Bean too. I know he's been not in actually any trade talks, but among the fan base, that's who's been theorized as somebody who's expendable. Jake Voracek is probably a movable option, but I don't think the Jackets would really want to move him. I think he's clicked well with the locker room, with the Blue Jacket fan base in general, with the organization, and they don't necessarily want to move on from Gus Nyquist either. But out of those two, Gus Nyquist is only signed here for one more year. He's gonna be like 34. Maybe the team that he goes to, he's still great and he plays great till he's 40. And it's one of those things where Father Time doesn't get that win until later on in his career. But Gus Nyquist is probably the most expendable guy on here. Although if the Jackets are looking for, maximum return on a guy, probably Oliver Bjorkstrand gets the most return. But, if you don't have to trade Oliver Bjorkstrand, I don't think you would want to. And I think the front office doesn't want to trade Oliver Bjorkstrand either. Gus Nyquist is probably the easiest of the forward group to move on from. Even if it is for nothing and it's just like for future considerations or whatever, I think it might be kind of worth it if you get Patrik Laine on a long-term deal. And one last thing I kind of want to mention, this isn't really about Ohio sports, but Pierre Luc Dubois has been causing a lot of trouble in the Winnipeg organization this offseason. His agent just literally straight up saying that he wants to play in Montreal. There was a report that Pierre Luc Dubois said that he was going to test free agency in 2024 when he expires from RFA status. What a disaster that PLD has been for. I know there were some people who said he pulled something like this on his junior team before he was even drafted. So I guess for that team, for the Blue Jackets, and now for the Winnipeg Jets, I guess this is the third such instance of Pierre Luc Dubois, saying, I don't want to play here anymore. Please get me somewhere else. I guess in this case it's Montreal. Maybe when he gets to the Canadiens, it'll be completely different, and Pierre Luc Dubois will all of a sudden, be committed and stick there, and he just really wants to be a Montreal Canadien. But his track record of getting to a team, things start out well, and then when it gets into the nitty gritty of discussing contract extension, that's when it starts to get kind of rough and ugly. And hey, please trade me. And these tactics by him and his agent are pretty. Basically, his strategy is to just tank his trade value so hard that Montreal is going to be really the only actual suitor, because Montreal is the only team that knows they're going to get him for long term, which I think just hurts his trade value more than anything. Because if they would have kept it maybe a little bit of a secret that maybe he doesn't want to be in Montreal for the rest of his career, then maybe Montreal is willing to give up a little bit more to acquire him than if they just know that he's gonna just go there in free agency and they don't necessarily have to give up anything for him. You don't want to be a team like the Chicago Blackhawks, who give up way too much for a guy who would have just signed with them anyway if they would have just waited for a year. Although who knows with what the Blackhawks went through last offseason, who knows if Seth Jones goes to the Blackhawks or not after this debacle. But that's all said and done. But again, I don't want to say I don't want to wish ill on Jets fans or anything, but I'm just glad Pierre Luc Dubois isn't the Blue Jackets' problem anymore. The negotiations between Patrick Laine and the organization seem to be going very friendly. As Laine not accepting or choosing not to file for arbitration seems to be going well for the Jackets. PLD didn't either, but mostly for other reasons, to keep an offer sheet alive and try to force something to happen there. But the Laine and then the Blue Jackets organization's negotiations seem to be going very, very well. That's a good sign for them. I just kind of wanted to comment on how Patrick Laine and PLD's negotiations with their respective teams have just kind of gone very differently since that trade happened a couple seasons ago. And that's been it. Again, nothing groundbreaking besides somebody setting a league record in Cucho Hernandez. Besides that, nothing really groundbreaking. Nothing too huge like Johnny Gaudreau signing to Columbus, which already happened. Just kind of wanted to catch up on things that had happened over the course of a week or so. Thank you all for watching the video. Like and subscribe if you liked and you would like to know when my other videos come out. I don't think that's anybody, but maybe some of you. Thanks for watching the video again, and I'll see you on the next one.